Hello, my name is Matthew Bellisario. This is the Bellisario Sonic YouTube channel, and I'm really excited to have with me another special guest. We have with us today, all the way originally from Tel Aviv, Grammy nominated flutist and composer, now an integral part of the New York jazz, Latin jazz, and salsa music scenes, Itai Kriss. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. We'll be talking about your latest project here on the JoJo label, Daybreak, as well as your projects with Televana. So I'm really excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your just how you got into music. It looks like you're a multi instrumentalist. You've got a lot of cool guitars there on your wall, as well as a
Yeah.
piano, and it's kind of unique to hear. You don't have too many flute players at the forefront of jazz music. I mean, you've got the classic, Eric Dolphy, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, and those guys. But so tell us a little bit about your musical background.
I grew up in Israel, and my first exposure to music was from my dad. My dad was a singer, songwriter, lyricist, and also guitar player, and later in life, drummer. So very musical. And so I started with him. He taught me the blues on guitar. That was kind of like the beginning. And then I was very fortunate to have a good musical education. So I went to conservatory. I sang in a choir, children's choir. I played the recorder, and then I kind of wanted to graduate to the real flute. It seemed like the recorder was kind of like an introduction to the flute. So I was just like, let's do this. Let's. And I started playing flute when I was 11, and I never stopped really. After that, I really got into jazz when I was about 13 or 14. I went to a school for the arts in Tel Aviv. And I got exposed to, bebop, hard bop, swing, big band music, all these things. It blew my mind. And then later, around the age of 17, I got exposed to Latin music and salsa, Latin jazz and salsa through a tape, mixed tape cassette that a friend gave me of salsa, and then like, that again blew my mind. I was like, "What? What is going on here? How is this all this rhythm and all of these textures? How is this all going together with the singing? It's just incredible." And so I started learning more about that. And then at the age of 22, I just moved to New York. I always knew I was going to move to New York because that's really the center of jazz and of salsa. So it wasn't a question of if, more of like when. Then I got my chance when I was 22 to move to New York and, pursue the dream of being a musician in New York, being part of the scene, playing gigs around, being part of the community of musicians who work and play and create in New York City. And I'm still doing that. That was 23 years ago, and still pursuing the same dream.
Interesting. So, what made you focus on the flute rather than the guitar, the piano, other quote unquote more popular instruments?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I was 11 when I chose the flute, and um, I stuck with it. I mean, there's something about the sound of the flute that kind of calls the ear for me. I mean, it's like something. It's when played well. It's kind of like a pure sound. It's kind of like evocative. I don't know. I mean, it really caught my ear when I heard
Yeah.
classical musicians playing the flute. And then, apart from classical flute, you have all of these traditions, really great traditions of folk music with flute. Flute is basically, people say it's the most ancient instrument. They've found flutes from 10,000 years ago and so on. So it's kind of very basic, very, very deep. kind of sound that's been with humans throughout history and prehistory even. So there's flute music in every country, and a whole dazzling array of flutes, like everywhere basically, and anywhere you look. And so that's also a really big, rich, lots of rich traditions. So that's also
Yeah, you
great.
have a lot to pull from.
Sorry, yes, exactly. And then when you get to jazz, where you can improvise, you can innovate, you can combine different things, you can um, so sure, flute isn't usually a protagonist in the jazz story, and um, a lot of people consider the flute like a classical instrument that's kind of, you can play jazz, but it doesn't really feel something about the sound, the attack of it, the body of the sound is it's not as muscular, or doesn't as punchy as a saxophone or a trumpet or a trombone, let's say, which are the classic wind instruments. Um, but it has a charm, and it has a different vibe, and it's actually very versatile. And
Yeah,
there are a bunch of people who did it, and I don't just listen to flute players. I actually don't listen to flute players so much, and it's not like flute is my even my favorite instrument to listen to. I mean, I enjoy music. I enjoy so much music from so many things. I enjoy listening to everything, and it's not like I think, oh, flute is the best instrument. No, it's the one that I chose and the one that I got proficient at, and so that's the way that I express myself musically. Um, but that's really just what it is. It's an instrument. It's an instrument for expression.
yeah,
So amongst others,
yeah. Sure, yeah, and we'll talk about this album here in a moment because this is absolutely a wonderful record, and not hearing the flute that often on different records, it's really refreshing to hear because you can hear how the flute as a lead instrument, which it is on this album, the attack, it could be very beautiful, it could be still very aggressive, very intense, and so yeah, I think this is definitely something people are going to want to add to their collection because this is a wonderful album. So how did you come across JoJo Records? Now I know Yatam, I've had him on the channel, and we talked about he's on the JoJo label as well. Did you know Yatam Silverstein before you did this record?
sure, yes, I've known him for many years. Amazing, amazing musician. Uh, kind of grew up together. We came up around the same time. He's a little younger than me, but we were coming up in the same time uh, around Tel Aviv in the central Israel jazz scenes. So our paths crossed back in the late '90s, and since then,
Okay.
yeah, and since then, he also moved to New York, like a lot of my friends, and he's had a beautiful, amazing career doing his music and collaborating with a bunch of people. And so yeah, I've known him for a while, and has been around the same circles for a long time. And so how did I get hooked up with JoJo? Well, actually, I've known the family of the JoJo Records founder, Simon Belelti. I've known them for a long time too, since my days in Israel. I mean, he's based in France, um, but I actually met and hung out with a bunch of his younger brothers who were still living in Israel. And it's a very talented family. They got a bunch of musicians, percussionists, um, and photographers, a bunch of very artistic family. So then, so then they also knew me. And when Simon decided to start the label, he contacted me and said, "Would you like to make an album?" And I said, "Yes, that sounds great. Sure." I mean, And JoJo Records has been so good. I mean, they came with a vision, and they offered to finance the album, which is really for independent musicians like myself. That's a big deal because a lot of labels just want to take your music that you already recorded, or and then release it, but not really pay, or else they want full control of the artistic process, and then they get into the artistic choices, which is also can be a problematic, especially as an independent artist. You really want to just do your music. And JoJo Records is really special because they wanted to make the album from start to finish. And so basically they paid for all of the stages, which there's a bunch of stages to making an album. And at that point, I made maybe 4 or 5 albums by myself, which means independently without a label. So I had to pay for everything, which is recording, mixing, mastering, artwork, pressing, and then later promotion and distribution. It's a lot. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't think people realize
yeah, how much
how
work
much is involved. Yeah.
goes into making a jazz album. And this is like, just for musicians, it's not that much, but it's a lot of work. So I was thrilled, because they didn't want to make any changes. They just wanted me to present the music that I chose to present with the musicians that I chose to collaborate with. And they just, they made it all easy. They put in a lot of work, and they created this beautiful package. And so I'm really happy that I had that opportunity to make something, make that's right, make a piece of art
Yeah.
that looks like that.
Beautiful. Yeah, they do great packaging. I love the artwork and everything. So you chose you already had the musicians picked out that you wanted on this record, and how long did it take you, or did you already have all the tunes composed here? Because, excuse me, because all these tunes are yours,
Yeah,
all
that's
these
true.
compositions. And so, how long did you have these tunes written, or did you actually write them for this specific album?
Well, the tunes come from a period during the pandemic, so not long before we started making the album. It was I set myself a challenge to write 100 tunes in 100 days. Yeah, I didn't know if it was gonna work, but I didn't have anything better to do, and I had lots of time on my hands. So I wanted to write 100 tunes, and the bar was pretty low. It didn't have to be a complete song. It didn't have to have an introduction and a coda, and it didn't have to have multiple parts. It just had to be. I mean, the challenge that I set for myself was to write basically something that's a musical idea, an independent musical idea, put it on paper, with a pencil. That's because there's different ways to compose too. You could compose in all kinds of ways, but my preferred way was to just pencil, paper, one a day, and um, and I actually did it. I never tried to do something like that before, but it worked. I mean, I have a bunch of music notebooks like this, just cheapo music notebooks filled with tunes. And then the titles were like day 1, day 2, day 36, day 49, etc. And I actually, I went back and looked back on those 100 days, and I found a bunch of these tunes that were viable, like that basically, they wanted to turn into pieces of music, not just ideas. And so all of the tunes on Daybreak were part of that project. And and each one of these was day number whatever. And then later, I fleshed them out a little bit. I gave them introductions. I did some reharmonization, and added some parts and gave them titles. And
Yeah.
so that's the story of those tunes. And just as an aside, out of those 100 days, I also already recorded 3 other albums of music.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so the 2 Telavana albums that you got recently,
Yep.
All
We'll talk
Aboard,
about those in a minute.
yeah, All Aboard Volume 1, Departures, and All Aboard Volume
Yep.
2, Arrivals. Those tunes are also from that 100-day period. They're also
Okay.
written back then, and handpicked. And then I also produced an EP of Cuban music for this time for a label and music licensing platform called Artlist. And the album is called Corazoncito Mío, like My Little Heart in Spanish. And those 5 songs were also from that period. So kind of a prolific, like
It's a lot of, yeah.
nice bag of compositions to draw from. I'm actually thinking of doing it again. So I don't know if it's gonna happen. Maybe I exhausted all of my creativity then. Maybe the things I'm worried about, right? Or maybe, or maybe the tunes that come out now will be very similar to the tunes because 100 is a lot. It's like that's a lot of ideas. Some of them are kind of recycled. I mean, it's hard to avoid that. As original as a person is, it's hard to come up with like a whole new, totally new idea every day. But yeah, I would like to try that and see what else is up there in the well.
It, so, Atai, when you compose, are you using an instrument? Are you like playing the piano? Are you using any instruments? Are you playing on the piano, coming up with ideas? Are you just coming up with your head and writing the notes, or how does that work?
Good question. I do it in a bunch of ways. So one way is sitting by the piano and messing around and seeing what happens, and then finding an idea and developing it. That does happen. I do that. I love doing that. Another is just off the top of my head. Like I'll be walking around and humming something. Um, just something that's in my mind, on my mind, and then I'll think, oh wait a minute, this could be a beginning of something, and then I'm just walking around or waiting for the subway in New York, um, or wherever I may be in the middle of the day, and just kind of just thinking about it or whistling it. And so that's another way for a song to start. Also, some of them came out of playing the flute, so I'll be sitting and practicing the flute and come across an idea and like a melodic idea or even a rhythmic idea while playing the flute and flesh it out and turn that into a tune. I also play a little bit of guitar, so some of the tunes came about while playing the guitar, while messing around on the guitar, and I find a nice chord or a nice bass line or whatever. So there's a bunch of ways that a tune can start. Not always at the piano, even though that is one way.
Interesting. Let's get into this album
Yeah,
a little bit in more depth. So you have Adam Birnbaum playing the piano, Luke Selick on the bass, and Anthony Pinciotti on the drums, who is sadly no longer with us. Correct?
yeah. Anthony
Um,
passed away even before the album came out, which is very sad. It's a huge blow to anybody who knew him. Amazing musician, amazing human being. Um, he was a very special human being, and I mean, to us in the band, I mean, he was kind of also like a mentor because he was the oldest musician in this band, and he had a lot of experience. Um, he wasn't that old, right? He was 50 something, but he was like a master musician. Um, he'd been around, he'd played all kinds of things, and he knew a lot about music, and so it was great to have him, in the band, as adding so much to the group dynamic, and all of this is apart from his playing, which is phenomenal. So it was a great experience, and I think this is the only recording that we ever did together, and it was a great experience.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a shock to
So
hear.
you had all these guys picked out. Yeah, that's sad. I was reading about that. Um, but you already had these guys picked out. So you had Adam picked out for you wanted him to play the piano and Luke on the bass. Then you had these special guests that we can talk about. Benny Bannock the third on the trumpet and Yatam
Yeah,
on the guitar. So tell us just a little bit briefly about how you picked all these guys.
yeah. Well, I usually I mean, I didn't really work a lot with any of them, and definitely not on my music. So it's not like I chose to make an album with some of my closest collaborators or the people that I'm most comfortable working with. That wasn't the idea. Actually, Jojo came to me, Jojo Records approached me and said they wanted me to make an album, and they wanted to be a jazz album, like because I do a lot of fusion stuff, a lot of like mixing Middle Eastern music and Latin music and a bunch of stuff. And they said, no, we really want you to show your jazz side because I really do come from jazz tradition. I studied it a lot and played. And so I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for me to do something different, to first of all to present music that's different from what I usually present, and also it's an opportunity for me to work with different cats, like musicians that I don't normally share the stage with or play with. So then I thought, okay, who are some of my favorite musicians that I know but don't really get to play with? And so that's how that came about. So Adam Birnbaum, I've seen him. We played a couple gigs here and there, but I've always seen him and admired his playing. He plays with a bunch of people. Very popular pianist here in New York. And then Luke Selleck, amazing bass player, has a beautiful sound and great swing. Pinciotti, of course, Anthony. I told you he's every time I heard him, I was so blown away. So I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity. I can call him. And the only person that I really had played a lot with, I mean, more with, was Yotam Silverstein. And so, but I actually chose Yotam to come in and play, especially for the Brazilian tunes, because I wrote a few Brazilian inspired tunes for this album. I know they asked me for it to be jazz, but this is kind of like Brazilian jazz. So I guess I couldn't help it. I wanted to put some global flavors in there, and Yotam has traveled to Brazil a bunch of times, and he got way into Brazilian music. Yeah, years before I did actually, and so I knew that for my Brazilian tunes, if I get a guitarist, Yotam can do an excellent job playing the nylon string guitar specifically because that's more of the classic kind of Brazilian sound, bossa nova sound. And then Benny Benak, he's just a phenomenal musician to me. He's the youngest in this group, and he's just so good. Like he's a natural. He's very knowledgeable, even though he's young, but very he's checked out a lot of music, and he's also a great singer. So that's something that I didn't take advantage of for this record. But he's just an all-around musician and entertainer. So if you get a chance to check out his music or go see him live, I really do recommend it. But I just wanted him to play the trumpet because I always like playing with trumpet players. Telavana also, the front line is flute and trumpet. Somehow it kind of some combination that works for me. So I wanted to share the front line with another horn player, and for this one, I thought trumpet would be great.
Yeah,
Benny Benack swings so hard, so it's kind of like a natural choice.
yeah, that's fantastic on the driving tune.
Yeah,
That's a real cool drive. And then Belezo with Tom. Those are two of my favorite tunes on the record for sure. Then going into the studio. So this was recorded at Sound on Sound Studios. It says April 29th and 30th and May 1st of 2022. So you're in there for three different dates. Is that correct?
well, actually, full disclosure, that information is not correct. It made it onto the cover before we could catch the typos. So it was only 2 days, and it wasn't on Sound on Sound. It was recorded at Samurai Hotel studio in Astoria.
Okay.
Yeah, Samurai Hotel. So yeah, it said Sound on Sound. That's a great studio as well. But we didn't go there. We did this at
Did you still have
Samurai Hotel.
Did you still have Andreas
Yes,
Mayer on
Andreas
as
was
the
was
recording
the sound
engineer?
engineer. He recorded and he did the mixing. So maybe that last date refers to mixing, the May date, because we only had 2 days in the studio. Um, yeah,
Okay.
we recorded everything in 2 days. And Andreas was
So tell us a little bit about that process. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that process. I've had Andreas on the channel a couple of times, and he's a has a great ear. He's a wonderful engineer, and he mixing and mastering. This album sounds fantastic. I mean, it sounds
I agree.
wonderful. It's audio file recording. Yeah, tell us a little bit about the process in the studio
I
briefly.
agree.
How you guys recorded and dealing with that.
Well, in New York City, we're kind of spoiled for studios because the level here is very high. Level of studios, of equipment, and of sound engineers. So this is a great town to come and record your project because everybody, is on board. Everybody knows the deal, and people make it easy for you. And the Samurai Hotel and Andreas is no exception. It's actually, so all this is to say that we're used to working with a high level of professionalism, and this was, super high. So beautiful studio, very easy, very smooth. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's interesting for your listeners, for the listeners here, to get a little bit of insight into recording. But recording in a studio can be frustrating. Um, First of all, there's always a certain amount of time, unless you have a huge budget, which most people don't. So there's always a time crunch. You're always only there for a few hours. Like, I mean, a day of recording might be 10 hours, let's say, but you think, oh, that's a long time. But no, it takes a long time to set up, and it's a very intricate process, like setting up all the mics and the lines, the wiring, and then getting a good sound on each instrument, and setting up the instruments themselves. Sometimes, the piano has to be tuned, and um, depending on the studio, sometimes there are booths, so isolation booths, where you can record an instrument, and while you're recording with everybody else, you don't hear any of the other instruments in those mics. However, sometimes there aren't booths, and you're all recording in the same room, which means there's bleed. Um, Bleed meaning uh, another instrument's sound entering your instrument's mic. So that means there's a little bit of if every instrument in each mic, which makes it a little bit harder to mix because it would. That's why they invented the isolation booth. So
How
sometimes
was this one done?
this was
How was this one recorded?
this was done kind of mixed. So the drums were in an isolation booth, uh, but the bass, piano, and flutes were in the same room with some separation. So we have gobos, which are like it's like a little piece of it's like a little wall, movable wall that they have in the studio that usually has a like a PVC, not PVC, what's it called, plexiglass so you can see through it.
Right, you just move them
Yeah, and
around,
you
and
move
yeah, you
them,
can see
and,
through it.
and then the guitar was also recorded in isolation booth. So that's a regular way to do it. There's what's called the live room in the studio, which is the biggest room where they have, and a lot of times the piano will be in the live room, and then they have several isolation booths. Some studios only have one isolation booth, some have several, um, and so and so you can choose. Now some people choose to record everything in the live room because they like the idea of everybody being together. And even though the bleed makes it a little tricky to mix, because you can't just make you can't just adjust each instrument alone. Every instrument has everybody else's sound in it. But sometimes that it's actually desirable because it gives that kind of cohesive feeling, and it doesn't feel like everybody's isolated. It feels like everybody's together in the same room, and that's actually a good feeling for music because it's all blended, and that's how music is really usually created. Everybody, like on a stage, everybody's on the same stage, on the same room. Um, just a technical note. Um, Another reason that people like isolation is for edits, because like let's say you played a wrong note on the record. Later, after you do the take, you listen, oh, that's a wrong note, let me fix it real quick. So then you can punch in that note or a phrase like that. So when you're isolated, it's easy. You just re-record that
Right.
phrase, and they put it in that spot where the original phrase that was played wrong was. That's easy enough. But if there's no isolation, that means that whatever the piano player was playing also bled into the flute mic. So if I want to redo my flute, that means that they have to redo the piano too at the same time so that it sounds together. So these are little things that happen in the studio. Um, so where was I going with this? Oh yes, we were talking about Andreas and the experience of recording at the Samurai Hotel. So like I said, it can be frustrating. It's time consuming, and then there's always things that come up, like oh, somebody has a buzz in their headphones, or they can't get the level right, or there's some kind of little technical difficulty, so it's a setback, and so everybody take like 10 minutes. We try to fix this, um, and that's even without getting into the difficulties of recording, like for the band from the musical standpoint. You start a tune and then somebody messes up, and okay, we have to start again. Okay, take two, take three, take four. um,
Right.
and of course sometimes there's a take that's perfect but for one thing, and then you have to make the decision: is this the thing that's going to break the take? Is it make or break? Is it a deal breaker? Can we keep the take? Should we punch that part with the whole band? A punch is like a redo of a section. Um,
Hmm.
so all of these questions, and so that's why it really helps when you have a professional team and a professional studio, great equipment that's not going to malfunction, and then a great engineer who's in the sound booth who hears everything. And engineers also have to be musicians. They have to know what's going on with the music. They don't just deal with technical stuff. They deal with all the technical stuff, but they also have to know, they have to have a musical sensibility, and also to understand. Like,
Sure.
let's say we want to punch, it's the fifth bar of the bridge on the head out. They have to know where that is in the tune.
Right.
And so that's why it's such a pleasure to work with professionals and people who are on a high level, because they usually, you don't have to even describe to them what you need. They can already guess what you need.
I just
They're
know.
paying attention. Yeah, recording in a studio is very intense, like mentally, because everybody has to be very focused for hours. and everybody has to be focused, including the sound engineer and all the musicians. Everybody has to know, and the producer to know like how we're doing with time. What did we do? What did we get done? What do we still have to do? And make decisions about. No, I don't think we already have 3 takes of this tune. Let's move on because it's not getting any earlier, kind of thing. So those are some of the challenges of recording in a studio. But in this case, it was really simple, easy, smooth, great experience.
And did you guys rehearse before you went in on any of these tunes, or did you have the music for everybody to look at so they have like something to go by?
We did. First of all, I sent the music in advance so people could learn it. Then we had one rehearsal separate from the recording, a different day, like a week or two before, where we went over all the tunes and we played them a couple times. So we were kind of prepared when we got to the studio. The music wasn't new to anybody.
So you're able to just get in there, do a take, do another take, and then pick the best one, move on, and go to the next tune.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not necessarily. We usually do record at least 2 takes, and then if we feel like one of them is going to be good enough, we go to the next tune, and only at the end do we listen back and choose the takes that are going to make the cut.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way it usually is. Usually we just want to make sure that we have a couple of options that could work, and we don't make that decision in the studio.
Right, while you're right.
Yeah.
And then were you involved in the mixing part of it with Andreas? Did you go over there and listen to while he was mixing it, or did he just send them over to you so you can hear them?
That's what happened. He sent them over so I could listen at home and then give him notes. And there were a few, I think a few like tiny edits that I wanted to make, where I maybe I made a mistake, or maybe I felt like, oh, this needs to be, so tiny little things. But generally, I didn't have to give him a lot of notes because he's the sound that he chose, the sound that he created there is right up my alley. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, he's got so much experience, over the years of recording and mixing and mastering. And yeah, this, like I said, this is just an audiophile sounding recording. It's wonderful experience to listen to for sure. Before you go though, let's talk a little bit about this project, which you said also came from the same writing time, right?
Yeah.
And these are a little bit different though. So you had to pick kind of like, okay, this album has a certain sound to it, and you do have a little bit of Brazilian influence on a couple of tunes, but it has a kind of a cohesiveness to it. Well, I listened to Volume 1 last night, and this is a different feel though. This is it's got a lot of pep to it. It's really a joyful listen. I mean, this is just wonderful. So tell us a little bit about Volume 1. Yeah, and Volume 2. Tell us about these. These are just, and again, I'll be listening to this Volume 2 here very soon. I'll be doing reviews of these as well. So you'll be seeing those coming out.
Yeah, well, Tel Havana is my long running. It's my baby, basically. This is the band that I put um, a lot of work into, and got a lot of had a lot of fun with, because, and we've been doing Tel Havana for 12 years already. Started in 2013, and the idea was to kind of combine my two homelands, my homeland that I come from in Israel, in the Middle East, Mediterranean region, with everything that comes with it, the musical traditions from there, and then combine that with Cuban music, Caribbean music, and Latin American music more generally, which is a region of the world that I feel like I've adopted, or they've adopted me, because I've been in the Cuban scene and the generally the Latin American music scene, Caribbean music scene in New York for a long time, and I learned Spanish, and I have a lot of friends, and I'm really part of that community too. So that's why I created Tel Havana, to kind of bring those those languages together. And we made a couple of records before All Aboard. And so All Aboard is just really the latest recording effort in a string, in kind of a movement that's been happening for years. And it's a natural continuation of the two first albums. I'm really proud of what we achieved here with these two volumes. I mean, I think it's kind of it's more Tel Havana than ever. You know, it's in the sense that it combines Arabic and Middle Eastern, which includes Turkish, Iraqi, Moroccan, Algerian. The whole. It's a huge region. So I don't
Yeah,
pretend to
it's
be an expert in all of these styles, but we have flavors like there's so much amazing music from Yemen, from the Balkans, um, from everywhere in the region, um, including Israel and Palestine, of course. So, so we have all of that, and then we have some tunes that are really straight up Latin jazz, and some that are more kind of a mashup of both styles, and some that can't actually be really easily defined at all. Um, but that's hopefully the music comes first, and it's not about what box can you put this song in. It's
right. Yeah.
more about the experience
Yeah. I mean,
of richness.
yeah. When I was listening to this, I just had different, you hear the kind of a Middle Eastern flavor to this. And then at some point, I can't remember which tune I was listening to. Maybe it was Night Vision. But I almost thought of Carlos Santana there for a moment. The little bit of the Cuban sound or that and I like the instruments on here because you've got trumpet, flugelhorn, you got piano on here. There's great vocals on this, bass, great percussion sound. So it's a really congas you have on here. Amos Hoffman's on here who plays the oud on a couple of tracks, which I've had him on the channel as well.
Right? Oh, you have? Oh, that's
Wonderful
great.
musician.
Yeah, Amos. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I can talk a lot about De La Havana because, and especially this records. I mean, Amos, he's like a mentor to me. I mean, I've known him since I was a teenager, and he's one of the first people who encouraged me to play. He had a Friday gig with a trio in my neighborhood in Tel Aviv every Friday, and since I was like 16 or something, he was invite me, and he's very encouraging. He'd encourage a lot of young musicians to get up and play and learn about music. So he's not really usually a part of Tel Havana. He doesn't even live in New York City. But for this one, I really wanted him to be a special guest, both on oud and also on electric guitar, which is great on both. And so I'm happy I had him. And then on congas, we have Samuel Torres, who is an incredible conga virtuoso. He's also a composer in his own right. I mean, he's an amazing composer. He wrote a concerto for congas and symphony orchestra, believe it or not. And yeah, and I think he won a Latin Grammy for that, or a Grammy. He's incredible musician, composer, and virtuoso of the congas, who kind of reinvented the way congas are played. In a way, his sound comprises many congas, more than two. His regular setup is like five or six, and he tunes them. So he has a very interesting approach. And apart from playing congas, he also played a bunch of other percussion instruments to kind of to flesh out the sound for Tel Havana because some of the tunes call for other sounds. So he did that too. And everybody else on that album also, I really encourage the listeners to go and check them out and check everybody out, because everybody are all the musicians are also band leaders and composers, and there's a lot of great music out there.
Yeah, this is a Fantastic. Listen, again, very passionate and joyous to listen to, uplifting, I would say. This was recorded at Bunker Studio, both of these, right?
Yes,
January 9th and 10th. So this was actually recorded after Daybreak was recorded.
that's right.
This was
That's right.
recorded, what, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so how did you guys, just briefly, did you guys record all together, or is this all isolated? Because you have so many different instruments here, it's probably hard to do it in one big live room, right?
Yeah. So for this, we had a bunch of booths. The Bunker Studio is a little bigger than the Samurai Hotel, just a little. And the Bunker is also another phenomenal studio. And so we recorded the way we recorded. The drums were in their own booth. The percussion was in its own booth. The flute and flugelhorn were together in a booth. So we couldn't make mistakes, basically. Or if one of us made a mistake, we had to redo the whole thing. And then the bass, piano, and oud were all in the live room. So
Okay.
that's the particular way this was recorded. There are always um, there's always options, and who knows if it would have sounded better or different with a different configuration, but this is how we chose to do it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this one, this sounds really good too. Great sound and recording. So, before we go, do you want to tell us a little bit about what do you have going on live? What different things do you have projects coming up? That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, right now, since I've released so much music this year, I mean, I've released all of this. I'm kind of fresh out of music to release, but this is a good time for me to kind of think about what's next, because for a few years I've been kind of working off of that bag of 100 tunes in 100 days. I'm sure if I dig in there, I can find some more that haven't been turned into records yet. But I kind of want to refresh myself a little bit. So I'm thinking, this is a good time for me to write some new stuff. And I feel like also these 4 albums of Televana have been great, and I still love the band, and I still want to create more music for Televana. Um, but I'm looking at a like changing course a little bit, or in addition to this, finding another thing to do. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure what that is yet. But
Hmm.
so yeah, so that's really where I'm at. I mean, there's a bunch of concerts coming up, and everybody, if you want to see if you're ever around New York or you want to see where I'm playing, um, check out my website itaikriss.com. In the tour section, you can see the upcoming travel dates. So I actually have a couple of interesting, like fun stuff coming up. I'm going to Jackson, Mississippi,
Really?
in a couple of weeks to play with Edwin Perez and his salsa orchestra there.
What day is that?
And
Or
I'm going
I'll
to be
look that
playing
up.
tres. I'm going to be playing the Cuban tres, not even the flute. I forgot to talk about.
Really?
Yeah, the tres is this instrument. It's kind of like a guitar, but as you can see, it only has 3 pairs of strings.
Interesting.
So that's
Interesting. That's really
yeah.
cool.
And then the week after that, I'm going to Colorado to play with Alejandro Castaño and his Latin jazz band in Boulder, Boulder, Colorado. So that's going to be fun. In the winter, I'm going to go to Luxembourg and do a show and a couple of workshops at the end of January in Luxembourg. So I'm probably going to be playing some music from Daybreak and also some music from Televana over there. And in the meantime, I'm here in New York playing around, playing some jazz gigs, playing some salsa shows, etc., and dreaming up the next record.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to see what day you're playing in Jackson, because I'm
Yeah,
not too far from there.
really? All right.
Yeah, I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, so we'll have to see what day it is.
Sure, yeah.
I'll go on your website. Yeah, I'll go on
On
your
your
website
website,
and
yeah.
look.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but
Awesome.
it's coming up. It'd be great to see you there.
Yeah, so well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here, and it's been a pleasure talking with you. You're welcome anytime to come on, and whenever you have some more projects coming up, or if you release any of your, are you going to put any of your other albums on vinyl? Any plans for doing that for the vinyl fans?
Previous albums, I don't have a
Yeah,
plan for that right now, but I would love to do it. The only problem is it's costly. It costs a
yeah, it
lot
is. Yeah,
to produce these vinyls, and then one is never sure if they're going to sell, so or how much are going to sell. So, but one album that I would love to put on vinyl is Supermoon. It's the Televana album just before these releases, um, because that's a recording project that I'm really proud of. I mean, we put a lot of work into it. It's a little different. It has like some synth sounds in addition to the band and a bunch of stuff. So, um, I mean, I encourage everybody to check out that album, Supermoon, and hopefully, if I get a lot of good responses, then I was like, okay, it's time to put that on vinyl. So to make it a collectible.
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you collect vinyl yourself, or?
Yeah, I have a turntable. I have a bunch of records. I love going and kind of doing like a dumpster dive kind of thing. Go to record shops and look in the bins. Not necessarily like prized or like pristine condition or like Japanese reissues of Blue Notes are like those are great too. But I like to find all kinds of stuff like forgotten gems, old records from around the world. So I do enjoy that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I probably kept you longer than you than you planned.
But it's all good.
I
It's hard to stop talking after you start. After I start.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I could talk to you for hours. So
Thank you
we'll
so
have to do
much. Thank
maybe
you
a
for the
part two
invitation.
sometime when you have time.
I love what you're doing with the channel, and really thank you for putting a spotlight on all this music coming out. There's a lot of people are putting a lot of effort into making beautiful recordings, and it's great to see people like you who are like shining a light on that and bringing that to people's attention.
That's my passion is and I love discovering new artists like yourself and um, all these. There's so much great music coming out now that people kind of forget, especially jazz fans, that love all the old classics, which we all love, the old Blue Notes and Riverside and all that kind of stuff. But there's just so much stuff coming out now that's also equally as good, in my opinion, and people kind of overlook it. So that's yeah, a big part of what the channel is about.
Yeah, well, thank you for that.
All right, Atai, we'll talk to you soon, hopefully, and maybe we'll see you out playing. And for everybody else out there, you got 3 vinyl records here that you should add to your collection.
All right, thank you so
All
much.
right, well, take care.